Hey guys, what's up? Josh here, and something happened recently. My YouTube channel started to grow after after years. It started to grow, and I think I figured out why. So I really quit caring about the growth. Now, don't get me wrong. I still get a nice dopamine hit every time I see my stats go up. So it's nice to get attention, but I quit trying to grow. Instead, I decided to just be generous. I decided to share pieces of myself that I usually keep hidden, like my personal philosophy on life. Um, I wanted to share things and let it find the people that it connected with. And it's actually embarrassing. Like I'm an introvert, so putting myself out there in any way really feels like a life or death situation until I can calm myself down. But I have to remind myself, if they won't cry at my funeral, it doesn't matter what they think of me. If they won't cry at my funeral, it doesn't matter what they think of me. So that actually begs the question, how how do I act in a way that disregards the feelings of the many while still trying to be nice and kind? So for me, it's not actually about doing things that others would consider to be like mean or mean spirited. It's about embracing who I am as a person. It's about being me and working up the courage to show the world at least some of my mistakes, and to share my art publicly, and to try making something that I would also enjoy watching. So I for these videos, I blatantly copied a format that I love to watch. So thank you, Adam Duff. But I used my personal experiences, my favorite life lessons, and some of the thoughts from my favorite authors and speakers, and then I made something that I wanted to see, just because trying to dance to everyone else's tune is really fucking exhausting. I don't want to do talking head videos or tutorials. Like, there are more qualified teachers out there. There are philosophers who have real information to share. I just have experience, and I like to draw and paint and tattoo. So that's what I'm gonna do, is share my experience. But let's actually go back to the beginning. Josh was born, no, not that far back, but let's talk about, this pressure to please other people. Um, so I am very much a round peg, and Kentucky is a square hole. And yeah, that sounds kind of strange, but suffice it to say, I did not fit in growing up. Um, I grew up in a really rural community. So my dad and my brother, they grew up as hunters, which is something I never enjoyed. I actually love animals too much. I have killed one deer, and it made me feel so sick that I never wanted to do it again. But I went through that rite of passage as I believe I was 11 or 12, somewhere in that ballpark. I went through the rite of passage, and I didn't enjoy that rite of passage. So I was always a geeky kid. Um, to be clear, my father didn't raise me, and my mother did not. It's a long story, but my grandparents actually raised me, and uh, they were okay with me being geeky. I was learning to take apart computers at age 11 back in the 90s. I drew more than I actually studied, so I was constantly doing art, and I loved Dungeons and Dragons back when that got you beat up instead of invited out for a game night. I was one of those goth kids, so I wore the black clothes and the black fingernail polish and the black eyeliner. Did all of that in high school, and I think my dad nearly shit himself every time I walked through the door, but he tolerated me when I was around. Um, there's a really dark past there that all started when I was 6, and that made me very much an outcast in my community and in my family. So I really grew up fighting the pressures to conform more than most people do. It was something that I was always not necessarily comfortable with, but I always accepted that I was fighting conformity. I was okay being the freak, and I paid for it. Being a nerdy goth kid in rural Eastern Kentucky, well, that hurt both physically and mentally. But eventually, I came to realize that fighting conformity was like a badge of honor for me. It was the point. So I wrapped myself up in being not normal because I didn't want to be normal. I enjoyed the culture that I found myself in, and I embraced it to the point where that wasn't me either. I was trying to be the opposite of what everyone wanted me to be, but I was still thinking about what other people wanted me to be. So I was different, just like everybody else. And once I realized that, I started to evolve. I stopped fighting conformity for the sake of fighting conformity, and I really tried to embrace who I was. So now, I'm a tattoo artist, and I wear a uniform most days because it's easy. So I wear black scrubs and a gray t-shirt and usually a hoodie. It's comfortable as fuck, and I don't care what anyone thinks about what I look like. In my home and in my life, I'm very much a minimalist, except for technology. Huge shout out to Elgato for this fantastic new microphone. So I love tech toys a lot. Cameras, microphones, drawing tablets. Take my money, take it all. And I do a lot of other weird shit that isn't normal for any of my friends. So I meditate, I keep a journal, I keep a super strict budget, and I do my best to try to eat healthy. I don't drink pop, I recycle. All of these things that are very odd in Eastern Kentucky, and even with my outcast friends, the counterculture friends that I have, like, this is still weird stuff, and I don't fit in anywhere, but I don't fight that anymore either. Like, I'm not trying to fit in. I'm not trying to find some sort of clique to embed myself in. I'm just embracing who I am and letting people find me. And a lot of other really successful people have just really embraced who they are as people as well. So David Bowie, there's a great example. He's very much, or he was, rest in peace, he was very much an androgynous person who constantly reinvented himself through his entire music career. And he was just being him, his own weird, unique self. Oprah Winfrey, she openly discusses her traumatic upbringing, and she uses her trauma to connect with other people with empathy, and she's become one of the most inspirational figures in modern television. Hell, I'll give you a very, very recent example of someone who has truly embraced being themselves and actually wrote a song about it. So if you haven't seen it yet, look up the video Hi Ren by Ren on YouTube. I just watched this video last night, and I'll walk you through my experience. So I love flamenco guitar and just offbeat guitar, or jazz guitar, acoustic guitar. And someone suggested that I watch this video, so I started listening, and right away I was like, oh, nice. I love the way this guitar sounds. It's just a little off. It has a nice rhythm and melody. And then he started to sing a little strangely, and I was like, okay, this is interesting and kind of weird, not gonna lie. And then he starts to, I wouldn't call it rap even, he starts to share his poetry. And at first it was interesting, it hooked me, and then it went beyond hooking me, and it hit me. And by the end of this 10-minute song, well, not quite 10 minute, but by the end of this very long song, I was in tears. It transcended music and became art because Ren was sharing his self. He was sharing his experience. He was sharing who he was. He has embraced his uniqueness, including the influences that made him unique. And he connected. And that, I think, is what we're all trying to do. We want to connect. And it takes courage. It takes courage to know that you're not going to connect with everyone, but sharing enough of yourself so that you can connect with the ones who do. And there's no easy way to do that except acknowledging that, as weird as this sounds, no one cares about you. Almost no one will cry at your funeral, even if hundreds or thousands of people show up. Usually you're going to have a group of about 10 people who care enough to miss you for who you are. So those are the people you need to care about. And the ones who aren't going to cry, well, whatever they think about you is their problem, not yours. Most people are too self-absorbed to be thinking about you anyway. So most of them actually probably feel the same way you do. They're not judging you. They're worried about what you think of them, even though you're not even thinking about them. But for those people who will cry at your funeral, they already love you for who you are. So don't change yourself to please them, because they already love you for you. And if you need a little more courage, find something bigger than your personal feelings. It's terrifying to share who you are openly, and it fights every impulse you have to hide it. So it's not authentic, it's courageous. If you're scared of sharing yourself, you would authentically put on a mask, but you have to do the opposite. You have to take the mask off and share yourself with empathy and with bravery that lets you be and become who you actually are, because you have to fight for those changes you want to see in the world. So for me, I want to make the world a more beautiful place. So fuck what anyone else thinks. I'm going to keep supporting artists or creatives in any way I can, even if that's just sharing shit like this. And I'm going to do that in a way that's uniquely me. So at the end of the day, or the end of your life, would you rather be the truest version of you, or be exhausted from being who everyone else wants you to be. So for me, that's a pretty easy decision. I like who I am on most days. So I'm going to keep on being me.